My name is Madison Clark, though most people in the industry now just call me Maddie. This morning, I'm sitting in my office, floor-to-ceiling glass windows stretching across the skyline of Dallas, sunlight bouncing off the polished hoods of the cars lined up neatly below in my fleet yard. SUVs, sedans, vans, trucks, over 100 vehicles under my name. Funny thing is, most people assume I was born into this life, that my success was handed to me like a shiny new set of keys. They don't know the truth, that every mile of this journey was carved out of something I lost. I smoothed down the silk sleeve of my blouse, the faint scent of coffee still lingering on my desk. My phone buzzes, a low hum against the wood. I glance at the screen, and for a split second, my breath catches. It's my parents. I haven't heard from them in months, not really. Just the occasional forwarded holiday text, nothing meaningful. But now, they want to see me. Part of me wants to ignore it. After all, these are the same people who once told me I was wasting my time chasing freedom on two wheels. The same people who sold the one thing that meant the world to me, my bike. I lean back in my chair, eyes fixed on the reflection of my fleet glimmering outside. They took away my first taste of independence once. Now, they'll have to face the woman who turned that loss into an empire. I was 16 the first time I understood what betrayal from your own blood feels like. My bike wasn't just a machine to me, it was freedom. A faded red Honda, with a dent on the side and worn-out handlebars that still smelled like gasoline and sun-warmed leather. It was secondhand, sure, but when I rode it through the winding back roads of our small Texas town, it felt like the whole world stretched open just for me. Every morning before school, I'd sneak out a little earlier just to ride. The wind tangled in my hair, the vibration rumbling beneath me, the rush of speed reminding me that I wasn't just a daughter, or a student, or a girl expected to behave. On that bike, I was me. But my parents never saw it that way. One Friday afternoon, I came home to an empty driveway. At first, I thought maybe Dad had borrowed it. But then I saw the look on Mom's face, the folded arms, the tight jaw. "Where's my bike?" I asked, my voice cracking. She didn't even flinch. "We sold it. It was dangerous, Maddie. You're better off without it." My chest tightened, hot tears stinging my eyes. You sold it? Without even asking me?" Dad chimed in, casual, almost dismissive. "You'll thank us later. A girl your age doesn't need to be riding around on something like that. Focus on school." The words burned more than the loss itself. My hands shook, fists clenched so tight my nails dug crescents into my palms. I wanted to scream, but the lump in my throat was too heavy. That night, I sat on the porch steps, empty gravel where my bike once stood. My grandmother, Nana June, eased down beside me. She was the only one who never treated my dreams like they were silly. She handed me a small brass keychain, an old, tarnished charm shaped like a wheel. "I used to ride too, back when I was your age," she whispered, her weathered hand wrapping around mine. "They can sell a bike, Maddie, but they can't sell your fire. One day, that fire will take you further than they can imagine." Her words lit something inside me, steady and fierce. That night, I made myself a silent promise. If my own parents couldn't see my worth, I'd build a life so undeniable they'd have no choice but to. And I would never, ever let anyone sell away my freedom again. The day after my bike disappeared, I started working double shifts at the diner down on Main Street. At first, it was just a way to stay busy, to stop feeling that hollow ache every time I glanced at the empty driveway. But over time, I saved up enough to buy an old scooter. It wasn't much, but it was mine, and when I zipped through the streets delivering milkshakes or picking up groceries for customers, I felt a tiny spark of freedom return. That spark grew into curiosity. What if I could do more than just get myself from point A to point B? What if vehicles, my love for the road, could become something bigger? The turning point came one night at the diner when I overheard a woman in a crisp navy suit complaining to a coworker. Her company needed reliable transport for event setups, but every rental service had failed her. My heart pounded as I blurted out, "I can help." Her name was Rachel Bennett. Sharp eyes, confident posture, The kind of woman who walked into a room and owned it without saying a word. She raised an eyebrow at me, amused. "And what exactly do you have, kid?" I told her about my scooter, about how I was saving for a van, about how reliability wasn't about the size of the engine but the commitment of the driver. Something in my conviction must have struck her, because she smiled faintly and said, "Prove it." That was my first delivery contract. I rented an old van from a neighbor, worked through the night hauling supplies, double-checking every box, every strap. Rachel inspected the delivery the next morning and nodded. "You've got grit, Madison. Most people don't." From then on, she became my quiet mentor. She didn't hand me success, but she believed in me enough to open a few doors. She introduced me to clients who needed reliable transport, and little by little, I built a reputation. The road wasn't smooth. Some clients laughed at me outright. "A young girl running deliveries? Where's the real boss?" Others tried to underpay me, assuming I'd fold. There were nights when I broke down in tears, grease smeared on my hands after another van refused to start. Nights when the sting of my parents' words, "wasting your time," echoed louder than any engine. But then came the victories. The first time I bought a van outright. The first time a client paid in full and tipped me because they said, "You're the only one I trust." The first time I hired someone else to drive under my name. Each small win felt like reclaiming a piece of myself they had tried to take away. By 22, I had 3 vans. By 25, a dozen vehicles. I stayed quiet about it, never posting flashy updates. To my parents, I was still just doing odd jobs. I let them believe that. Because deep down, I wanted the reveal to hit them like thunder. Every time I jingled the little brass keychain Nana June gave me, I remembered that promise. They could sell my bike, but they couldn't sell my fire. And my fire was turning into an empire. The knock on my office door came just after lunch. My assistant peeked in, her brows raised. "Miss Clark, your parents are here." For a heartbeat, I froze. I had half expected them to call again. Maybe send a polite voicemail. But to show up here? At my headquarters? My pulse drummed in my ears as I smoothed my blazer and stood, heels clicking against the polished marble floor. When I opened the door, there they were, Mom in her neatly pressed cardigan, Dad with that same casual half-smile he always wore when he thought he was right. Only this time, his eyes darted nervously around the sleek lobby. "Madison," Mom said carefully, as though the word itself might break. "It's been a while." "Yeah," I replied evenly. "It has." They followed me through the glass double doors into the main wing of the building. I said nothing, letting the silence stretch, letting them see for themselves. Employees passed by with clipboards and radios, nodding at me with respect. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, rows of vehicles gleamed in the Texas sun. SUVs, cargo vans, delivery trucks, all branded with the navy and gold logo. Clark Logistics. I watched their eyes widen as the reality sank in. "Is this yours?" Dad asked, voice tight. I turned, resting a hand on the back of the leather conference chair. "Every last one. The office. The lot. The fleet." My lips curved just slightly. Not bad for a girl who didn't need to be riding around on something like that, huh? Mom's mouth opened, then closed. She clutched her purse strap like it was the only thing holding her up. We didn't know." "No." I cut in, calm but firm. "You didn't want to know. You thought that bike was a distraction. You thought I was wasting my time chasing freedom. But selling it didn't break me. It lit a fire under me so strong I couldn't put it out if I tried." I walked slowly toward the window, my reflection merging with the fleet outside. "Every mile, every contract, every vehicle out there, I built it because you once told me I couldn't." Silence. Heavy, almost suffocating. Dad finally cleared his throat. "We were just trying to protect you, Maddie. Bikes are dangerous, you know that." I spun, meeting his gaze head-on. "You weren't protecting me. You were controlling me. There's a difference." My voice didn't waver, even though my heart pounded. "And while you were busy underestimating me, I was busy proving you wrong." The room felt charged, like static before a storm. Mom's eyes glistened, guilt etched in every line of her face. Dad's bravado cracked, his shoulders sagging. For the first time, I wasn't the daughter scrambling for their approval. I was the woman standing in power, watching them scramble to understand. "Madison," Mom whispered, "this is incredible. We had no idea you were so successful." I let the words hang. Then, slowly, I smiled, not cruel, but steady, grounded. "That's because you never asked." They looked around again, absorbing the polished conference room, the bustling staff, the glint of vehicles outside like an army at attention. Everything about this space carried my fingerprints, the determination, the sweat, the countless nights of grit. And now, the people who once took away my freedom were standing in the empire born from that very loss. For the first time in years, I felt the balance shift. They had the shame, the disbelief. I had the truth. And the truth was undeniable. Dad was the first to break the silence. He shifted in his chair, glancing out at the fleet like he was still trying to convince himself this wasn't some elaborate illusion. "Maddie," he started, his voice uneven, we could use your help." There it was. The ask. I leaned forward, folding my hands on the glossy table. "Help with what exactly?" Mom cleared her throat, her voice low. "Your father's business has been struggling. Deliveries, contracts, transportation's been unreliable. We thought maybe you could step in." For a second, I almost laughed. The irony was sharp enough to cut steel. The same people who once told me I had no business chasing this dream now sat across from me, asking for access to the very empire they doubted into existence. I let the silence sit for a moment, savoring the weight of it. Then I said, calm but unwavering, "I'll consider it. But if I do, there will be conditions." Mom blinked, caught off guard. "Conditions?" "Yes." My voice was steady, deliberate. "Number 1, respect. No more dismissing me as if my ambitions are childish. No more backhanded comments about what a woman should or shouldn't be doing. If you can't see me as an equal, then you don't get access to anything I've built." Dad opened his mouth, then closed it again. His pride fought against the reality staring him in the face. "Number 2, I continued, you stopped tearing each other and me down. You always thought criticism was love, but it wasn't. It was control, and it left scars. If you want to work with me, you'll need to start unlearning that." Mom's eyes glistened. She nodded faintly, as though the truth she'd ignored for years was finally cracking through. "And number 3, I said, my gaze sharp but not cruel, you chase something of your own. You've spent too much of your lives telling me what not to do. It's time you rediscovered what you want to do. Dad, maybe it's rebuilding your contracting firm. Mom, maybe it's that craft business you always talked about but never started. If I provide resources, it's only on the condition that you build, not just take." They exchanged a glance, stunned into silence. I leaned back, letting out a slow breath. "I'm not doing this to punish you. I'm doing this because for the first time in my life, I have the power to set boundaries. And if I let you in without them, we'll just repeat the same patterns that broke me years ago. I won't let that happen." For a long moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the city outside. Finally, Dad spoke, his voice lower than I'd ever heard it. We'll try, Maddie." Mom reached across the table, tentative, almost trembling. "We're proud of you. We should have said it years ago. I'm sorry we didn't." The words hit something deep in me, but I didn't let them undo me.
"Not yet."
I gave a single nod. "Then maybe we can move forward. But remember, this is my road now. You walk it by my rules." And for the first time in my life, I saw it in their eyes, respect. Not because I begged for it, but because I demanded it. The weeks that followed were different. At first, I half expected my parents to slip back into old habits, criticisms disguised as advice, doubt hidden in casual remarks. But slowly, almost awkwardly, they began to change. Dad showed up one morning with a notebook full of ideas for revamping his contracting firm. Instead of brushing off my feedback, he listened, really listened, for the first time in my life. Mom started sketching designs for handmade crafts, the same ones she used to dream about before practicality got in her way. It wasn't a perfect transformation, Old patterns don't vanish overnight. But there was effort, and for me, that effort mattered more than perfection ever could. One evening, after a long day of meetings, I drove out to the Fleet Yard alone. The sun was dipping low, painting the rows of polished vehicles in hues of gold and crimson. I slipped the little brass keychain out of my pocket, the one Nana June had given me years ago. Its edges were worn smooth now, but the tiny wheel still gleamed faintly in the light. I rolled it between my fingers, remembering the gravel driveway where my bike once stood. The sting of betrayal. The promise I whispered to myself on that porch. And then I looked out at what that pain had built, 100 engines ready to roar to life at my command. My empire. My freedom. For so long, I thought that moment in my teens was the end of my story. That losing my bike meant losing the part of me that craved the open road. But now, standing here, I realized something else entirely. They hadn't clipped my wings that day. They had unknowingly sharpened them. I wasn't the girl sobbing on the porch anymore. I was the woman who turned heartbreak into horsepower, who forged independence from loss, who built an entire fleet from a single stolen dream. As I slipped the keychain back into my pocket, I smiled softly. Nana June had been right. They couldn't sell my fire. If anything, they'd fueled it. I walked toward the lot, the soft crunch of gravel under my heels, and for the first time in years, I felt no bitterness. Only clarity. Because the truth is simple. They sold my bike thinking they were ending my freedom, but all they really did was hand me the keys to every road ahead.